It's no secret that the cost of everything keeps going up, wages don't, and it can be very, very hard to save money. And that's a very bad thing, because if you ever actually want to be able to escape the workforce and enjoy your time on your own terms, then having money is pretty freaking important. And the best way to have money is to either live below your means, save money, or hold that money back so that you can invest it into something that is going to appreciate and beat inflation, or that is going to work for you. But the key here is that you establish a cushion of funds so that no matter what happens, you're covered, and so that you can someday walk away from the workforce, which is exactly what I did at the age of 39. And I did that without having ever invested. I did that without ever having a six-figure salary. And as a matter of fact, the salary I had was around $70,000 or less for more than 85% of my career. And that's gross income I'm talking about here. What I netted was actually much less than that. But I was able to accomplish that making a very modest, very non-impressive salary. And not only was I able to do that, I was also able to pay my house off in less than 4 years, the one I'm standing in right now. I was able to buy another home, pay cash for it. I was able to completely get out of debt, basically all the debt I ever had, credit cards, student loans, all that stuff, and walk away from the workforce using only the money I saved. And what I'm going to share with you are some of the outside the box things that I've done over the years to save money. For some people, these things might seem a little out there. They might seem a little unorthodox. But if you want to save money and get ahead, and you want to make use of the money that you do have and be able to actually live below your means so that you can put money back and invest it and do all this amazing stuff with it, you're going to need to think about ways that you can save money. Because our modern society is set up to be very consumer based. It's a very consumerism, materialistic world out there, and they would love more than anything for you to keep spending money, because that's how all these corporations and all these investors get rich. But when you can break away from that and understand that all that stuff's really only set up so that it takes your money, so that you stay trapped in the system and you have to work your entire life, then it's very freeing, because it allows you to put money back and break free from that system. All right, so first things first, let's start with appearance. I learned to cut my own hair when I was like 20 something years old. All right, back then haircuts for me were about 25 to 30 bucks with a tip. And I had to get my hair cut every 2 weeks. Now that I cut my own hair, I cut my hair every single week. I cut it every single Sunday. But back then, every 2 weeks, because my hair grows extremely fast, always has. All right, so I'm saving 60 bucks a month right there. Now the same haircut, I just looked it up, is gonna be 40 bucks with a tip. So that's 80 bucks a month that I'm saving just on cutting my own hair. Now I will say that when I first did this, I screwed it up really freaking bad. Had to wear a hat. But eventually, because I screwed it up, I learned from that, and now I cut it pretty freaking well. Another thing, since I'm standing in my dining room right here, is this large kitchen table right here. All right, this kitchen table I got 100% for free. It was a hand-me-down, and I learned how to do stuff myself. I refinished this myself, and now it is a very nice dining room table. All right, so that just goes to show you that if you buy secondhand stuff and you don't buy new things, you can save a lot of money. And if you get on Craigslist and Marketplace or eBay or any place that sells secondhand goods, you can find stuff like this a lot of times free. People just give this stuff away because they upgrade. They buy into this consumer stuff. They upgrade because what they have isn't nice enough, and they just throw out their old stuff. You can find couches. You can find pretty much any kind of furniture, tables, you know, whatever. But it's just a matter of learning the skills to either clean it up or refinish it yourself, and you can have something very, very nice that is literally going to last a lifetime. And the way I like to look at this is that for me, it's extremely rare for me to hire a professional to do something, because why would I hire a professional when I myself can become that professional? If they learn the skill to do the thing that I need them to do, that means I can learn it. And if I can learn it, I can save all that money on labor and whatever upcharge they're going to charge me for material and all that stuff. So another prime example of that is this house. I painted this entire house myself. I did all the electrical stuff in here myself. I learned how to do that because I wanted to save money. And I saved a substantial amount of money by doing that myself. And in hindsight, it really wasn't that hard. All the black trim and stuff, I took this out in my barn and I learned how to spray with the spray gun, and I sprayed all this paint on here, and they installed it. And here I am. I've been in this house since 2009, so 16 years later, still looks just as good as the day I did it. And that includes the walls, that includes everything. And that's also true for this floor. So I had a guy that was gonna do my flooring, and he was gonna charge me, you know, material and labor. And I was like, what if I help you with the floor and you just knock the labor off, and I'll basically do the floor, show me how to do it, and just charge me material. And he did that. So I saved a ton of money for the flooring in this house because I basically did all the work and it just paid for the material. And while we're on the topic of household stuff, something else that saved me a ton of money are appliances. So when I furnished this house, I did not opt for the fancy, you know, refrigerators with the TV in the door where it looks like a freaking spaceship, because you don't need that stuff. When you have all that crap on an appliance, it's just more stuff that can break. And that's the way I've always viewed it. And the more stuff that can break, number one, if you have more gadgets on there, it's going to cost you a whole lot more money. Those refrigerators and stuff like that, they have the TVs in there and the side-by-side doors and these auto coolers, and you can control it from your phone. They're thousands of dollars. This thing cost me a couple $100 brand new. It's a very basic model, top and bottom refrigerator. And 16 years now, I've never had a single problem out of this fridge, not even a burnout light bulb. All right, so this thing is gonna last me a very, very long time. And as the old saying goes, they don't make them like they used to. But when you have all that stuff that can break, that's very expensive repair bills as well, because a lot of that newer stuff, again, you can't fix it yourself. So you have to have a Maytag repairman come in, or you have to buy a new refrigerator. And from what I've seen, because I've got friends that have owned those refrigerators with all that fancy stuff, within 5 years they're gonna break. I mean, it's just guaranteed, because there's so much crap in there that can break, and they're made very cheaply. You know, they're made by the lowest bidder, and they do the exact same thing as this refrigerator. So when it comes to appliances, I buy either the lower brand or I buy the very basic models. That's the same for my stove. I've got a tap-in stove, which is an off-brand of Electrolux, but 16 years later, and it's still going strong. And the same is true for my washer and dryer. I bought Roper brand, which is an offshoot of Whirlpool. 16 years later, just like the rest of my appliances, still going strong. Again, they're nothing fancy. It's a top-load washer and a side-load dryer, but I don't need that fancy stuff. They wash and dry my clothes. That's what a washer and dryer is supposed to do. And I don't want a washer that is gonna sing me a freaking song when it gets done washing my clothes. It's just unnecessary. And again, all that stuff, all that automatic locking mechanism and the digital dial on there, and it's singing you songs and all that stuff with 1,000 different settings, it's just more stuff that can break. That's the way modern appliances are made. They're literally made to break after a certain amount of time. They're made with an expiration date. So some more prime examples of doing work yourself. These bushes here, I trim those myself. It's either hire somebody to come in and trim my bushes, or I learn how to do it myself. All you have to do is go on Google, because the information's there. Figure out what time of the year is best to trim your bushes so you don't kill them, and then buy a trimmer and trim your bushes. I mean, it's really that simple. Same goes for cut my grass. Could I hire somebody to cut my grass? Absolutely. That's going to cost me an absolute fortune though, because I have acres of grass to cut, and I'm not willing to do that. I got a very cheap used lawnmower, and that lawnmower has lasted me a very long time. I've even gotten free lawnmowers before, and I use those to cut my own grass. And over the years, that has saved me an astronomical amount of money, because if I was paying somebody to cut this grass, it would cost me a couple $100 every single week. And speaking of this yard, another big way I save money is when they built my house, they had to do the final grade. Which, when I refer to grade, I'm talking about the way the yard falls. All right, so you want the water to flow away from the house, not towards the house, which is extremely important, especially if you have a basement, because it will keep your basement from flooding. And I had two options: either pay the contractor to do the final grade, or I could do it myself. So to save money, I did it myself, and it worked out very well, as you can see. This gigantic smoker is another prime example of this. All right, I bought this freaking smoker because I love smoking meat, and I refused to pay $500–600 for a brand new smoker. This is a XL version, so it's very, very large, and it's only a few years old. Even though it is a little bit rusty, it doesn't matter how it looks on the outside, because the inside looks fantastic. It's barely even been used. I got this freaking thing for $50, all right? But again, things like Facebook Marketplace, which is where I got this, Craigslist. Those are great for buying secondhand products. Another fantastic way that I save money is that I never, and I will never, buy a new vehicle, because that's one of the worst wastes of money that you could ever possibly have, because the moment you drive that new vehicle off the lot, it depreciates in value. This car cost me $3,000. I literally just got back like an hour ago from having tires put on this. All 4 of these tires, installed, mounted and balanced, cost me 50 bucks because I bought used tires. And that's something I've been doing for several years now. Occasionally, I will splurge and I'll buy new tires. But for this car, they cost on average 400 bucks installed. For a lot of cars, it can be well over $1,000. And I used to buy used tires even when I was driving back and forth to work every single day. When I worked an hour away, it was a 100-mile round trip. And I've never had a problem with used tires. And when I was really trying to save money and pinch pennies, I started swapping these tires out myself. And the only thing I had to do after that was take my car in and have them balanced. And some of the things that are often overlooked about new vehicles is that, number one, it's going to cost you more out of the gate, obviously. But then you have the cost of insurance, which is also going to be sky high. You have the cost of tags, taxes, and registration, which is also going to be much higher than a used vehicle. And then what people usually don't think about is the fact that if you get an extended warranty, you think, okay, that's a really great thing because my car is going to be covered for X amount of years or potentially its entire lifetime. Not knowing that that warranty is only valid if you get every single check, balance, and service done with that dealership where you bought the car. The moment you try and do something yourself, or you try to put a part on there that is not something that comes from the OEM or something that they install, it voids your warranty. And in most cases, if it's a brand new car, those parts are going to be astronomically expensive. And if it's covered under the warranty, that's a great thing. But if it's anything outside of that, like your checks and balances, or getting tires put on, or a new battery installed, or whatever services you have to have done that aren't really your car breaking, where it would be covered under the warranty, that stuff can be very, very expensive. And oftentimes it's going to cost you several hundred or even up to thousands plus dollars to have that stuff done. New tires is a prime example of that. My brother's a service manager for a very large dealership, and that dealership has gotten into selling these electric cars to people, and they come in to have tires put on, not knowing that it requires a very special kind of tire. And those tires are into thousands of dollars a piece. So the customer comes in expecting to have these tires put on for a few $100 or maybe $1,000, not knowing it's going to cost them $3,000 or $4,000 to have tires put on. And for $3,000 or $4,000, I could go out and buy this truck again because this truck cost me $3,000. Another thing I do to save money and pinch pennies is I learn how to sew myself. All right, so I have an investment property. It's a lake house I bought after I retired. And I rent that short-term rental on Airbnb. And if you've ever done short-term rental or done Airbnb, you'll know that there's certain things that wear out pretty freaking quick. Now, I have a couple brand new comforters that have only been used like a couple months, but because I wash them every single time somebody stays there, the seams and stuff like that can bust loose pretty easily in the washing machine. So I spent like $15 to buy new gears for this old sewing machine that my mom had. I fixed it up, taught myself how to sew, and I fix all those comforters myself. Instead of going out and buying a $60 comforter every time one rips, I just sew it up. And by doing this, I've saved a tremendous amount of money, again, because I don't have to go out and buy new stuff every single time. And I also don't have to pay somebody to sew up my stuff. And since we're on the topic of fabrics, another thing I do to save money is most of the clothes I buy, with the exception of this shirt, because I got this shirt from Trogs in Pennsylvania, which I bought back in like 2015, so it's at least 10 years old. But another thing I do to save money when it comes to clothes is I buy most of my clothes, shoes, pants, shirts, not underwear, but the main things, from secondhand stores or from discount stores, places like Ross, TJ Maxx, sometimes Goodwill. You can find amazing deals at those stores, and the clothes there are just as good as the stuff that you can buy in a major retail store, but they cost significantly less, and that's why I love it. And that's another great way to save money, is to stop caring what people think about you, because the moment you can do that is the moment you don't need to go out and buy designer stuff. As long as you're okay with the way you look, that's all that matters. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. 2 more prime examples saving money. All right, more secondhand stuff. I got this Vizio, this 46-inch Vizio, not a smart TV. I got this on Marketplace for $25. The stand it's sitting on, 20 bucks, all right? As you can see, they're pretty freaking nice. It's not smart, but who cares? Because you can get a Fire Stick, which by the way is another way to save money, or you can get a Roku and just plug into this thing and make any TV a smart TV. I also don't pay for any streaming services, all right? That is something I'm completely against, because when you buy a Fire Stick or you get something like that, there's plenty of free stuff on there that you can watch, and I'm not really that much of a TV person anyway. As a matter of fact, I don't think I've turned this on one single time since I bought it. All right, and it's been down here almost a year now, or over a year. Another prime example is over here to my right-hand side, this treadmill. I had a guy down the street that was gonna throw this thing away because he had to make room in his house. And it's basically brand freaking new. It's never been used. And that brings up another really good point, and another great way to save money is creating a home gym. All the stuff that you see here is secondhand stuff. This rack I paid 250 bucks for. That's very cheap because this is very expensive. All those weights, some of those were free. A lot of those came with this rack. Again, 250 bucks for the whole ensemble. All this padding I got for free. Somebody was giving this stuff away. Again, the treadmill is free. I have very, very little money in this setup back here, and I have never had to pay a gym membership, ever. And I've been working out now since I was 20 years old, so I've been working out for 20 years. I've always had this set up down here. I built myself a home gym. I have maybe, I don't know, 300 bucks, 400 bucks total in all this. And if you think about the course of 20 years, how much I would have saved on gym memberships out of that amount of time, that's a lot of freaking money I've saved. Which is yet another amazing way to save money, and that is to improve your health. Because if you've never been sick before, that is one of the most expensive things that you can ever possibly have, is having poor health. I know that because I've been there. I have an aunt right now that's going through cancer, and 1 year of treatments has cost her over $1 million. All right, so the best thing that you can do is to get ahead of health before health becomes a problem. By doing that, even if you spend more money on food and you do end up spending money on equipment or gym memberships and stuff like that, it's going to pay dividends in the long term, because the moment you get sick is the moment you're going to start bleeding cash. And it's not going to be a little, it's going to be a lot. And in a lot of cases, they only treat these symptoms. They never actually address the root cause. So it strings you along for years or even decades, or even throughout the remainder of your life without actually curing you. And you end up having to pay money on pharmaceuticals, on specialists, on doctor visits, on surgeries, on treatments, on all this stuff. And it adds up extremely fast. And when it comes to becoming a professional and doing stuff yourself, this is another great example. This shelving that I have in my shop here, I built this 100% by hand. It runs the entire length of my shop, which is like 50 foot. It goes almost from floor to ceiling. And I built this, no joke, I built this 100% for free. All right, I got reclaimed lumber that was being given away, and I learned how to build this shelf myself. It's very easy to do. You get on YouTube, you learn by trial and error, and you just do it. Another prime example of becoming the professional and doing stuff yourself is this addition I built on the back of my shop. All right, so I saved an astronomical amount of money on this addition. I'm talking probably over $10,000, maybe more. Because what I did is the company I worked for, they had a points program where if you perform well, you could essentially get points and thank yous and stuff like that from people, and it would go into like this little wallet, and you could cash those points in for gift cards. So I cashed those in for those gift cards. I bought probably 99% of the material that makes up this addition. I bought with those gift cards. The rest of the money I got from my credit card, because I have a credit card that I use for all my purchases. Anything I buy, I put on that credit card. And that does two things. It, number one, protects my bank account, so I'm not using my debit card for everything. And number two, every time I use that card, it's Bank of America, I get points. And every 1 to 2 years, I cash those points in for usually about $1,000 to $2,000 every single time I cash those points in. So I use that money for this addition. Another big way I save money on this is that I did everything myself. So that saved me a ton of labor cost, and all the metal on the outside was actually secondhand, which I got extremely cheap. I think I got the whole lot of metal for like 400 bucks. And I did the concrete work myself also. All right, concrete is something I had not done before on this scale, but I learned, I researched, And I was like, you know what? Worst I can do is screw it up. So I'm going to try it out because it's going to save me about $3,000 to $4,000. So as you can see, by becoming the professional, learning how to do stuff yourself, it pays dividends on the back end. Which brings up another really good point, because when it comes to mechanical work, working on cars, small engines, pretty much you name it, I do as much of that as I possibly can myself. I mean, I pull entire engines out. I've rebuilt engines. I rebuilt this truck back here from the ground up. This is my original truck. It's a 1984 S10 that I bought when I was 16 years old. All right, I've done all this work to it. It's very, very extensive. I did a full frame off restoration on this thing. I didn't know a single thing about any of this kind of stuff when I first dug into it, but I tore it apart and I learned. I got on forums, I got on the internet. YouTube wasn't really a thing back then, but I read a lot of content, I read a lot of forums, and I just learned how to do it through actually doing it. And that has served me very well in life, because if there's something that needs to be done with my vehicles, I can do it. And I save myself an astronomical amount of money by doing that. So when I buy vehicles, I make sure that they're a little bit older so that I can actually work on them, because some of the newer stuff is basically impossible to work on. And that also saves me a lot of money on parts, because the older stuff has a larger market for parts out there, especially aftermarket and used stuff. So as you can see, there are quite literally like 1,000,001 ways that you can save money by doing things yourself and just thinking outside the box. And this is the stuff I do on a daily basis. You know, it doesn't keep me from living my life. I just make it a point to mitigate wasteful spending as much as possible. And to me, going out and buying new stuff or stuff that I don't necessarily need, things like new cars, designer clothes, paying people to do things that I can do myself, all that to me is wasteful spending. So I'm living proof that you don't have to be a millionaire, and you don't have to, you know, restrict your life down to the bare minimum and live a minimalist lifestyle to be able to feel financially secure and to basically be able to buy yourself the freedom that we're all striving to get. So be sure to leave a comment down below. Let me know if this helps you out at all. And if you have other ways that you save money and live life frugally and below your means, share that below, because that's bound to help somebody else out. And there's probably 1,000 more ways I've done this over the years, so I'll definitely be making more videos that are similar to this, so be sure to keep an eye out for those.